You think you want a sharp mind at my age. I'm 83. I was the envy of my whole neighborhood. They saw a man who remembered everything, who never struggled. What they saw was a lie. I was a thief. I stole to stay sharp. I stole the memories of my neighbors, my friends, even my own estranged daughter. I built my mind out of their lost moments and their grief. It was the biggest mistake of my life, and it cost me the last chance at a real connection with my family. I was so afraid of aging alone, of the empty silence after losing my wife, that I tried to fill the void with stolen stories. I thought I was preserving my mental health, finding a way to live longer with a full mind. But I was just creating a prison of other people's pasts. The regret is unbearable. Let me tell you what really happened. It was a Tuesday, 3 months after Evelyn's funeral. I was taking out my trash when Mrs. Henderson from number 4 walked her new dog past my gate. A little terrier thing. "Afternoon, Arthur," she said. I looked at that dog with its wiry fur and pointed ears. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Henderson. That's a fine border terrier you have there." She looked shocked, then delighted. "Why, yes, you're as sharp as ever, Arthur." I nodded. I felt like a monument, solid. Later, I recited the entire shipping forecast for old Professor Alden. He just shook his head and smiled. That was the peak, you see, the very top. The descent began the very next morning. I woke up and reached for Evelyn's side of the bed. It was cold, of course, but that wasn't it. I tried to picture her smile, the exact curve of it, the way her eyes crinkled. Nothing. It was just a shape, a name without a face. A cold terror slithered into my gut. It wasn't grief. Grief I knew. This was different. This was theft. I got up, my heart thumping, and I pulled out our wedding album. I stared at the pictures. The young man, me, looked like a stranger. Evelyn's face in the photo was flat, like evidence of a crime I couldn't remember committing. I spent that whole day drilling my own history, dates, names, places, like reciting scripture to a crumbling wall. So I became the model citizen. I made it my job. I knew every neighbor's name, their anniversaries, their grandkids' names. I remembered that Millie's cat only ate the salmon pâté, not the chicken. I was Arthur Finch, the human library. People would say, "How do you keep it all straight, Arthur? You're so sharp." And I just smile. That praise was a balm. I applied it every single day. But inside, the silence was spreading. It was exhausting, this performance, this pretending to remember, when all I felt was a great big empty hole where my life used to be. The performance held, though, until the day the map of my own life just tore. I was walking to the chemist, a route I'd walked for 40 years. I turned the corner onto Maple Avenue, and everything shifted. The houses didn't look right. The trees were in the wrong places. My heart started hammering in my chest like a frantic bird. I stood there on the corner of Maple and 2nd, sweating, utterly lost, 2 blocks from my own front door. It wasn't that I forgot a fact. It was that I was disappearing from the inside out. That panic, it was absolute. It felt like my soul was evaporating right there on the sidewalk. An old woman asked if I was all right. I mumbled something and stumbled home, following street signs like a tourist. In the stark, quiet safety of my living room, I sat. I just sat for a long time. The terror slowly cooled into a hard, clear understanding. I was not just losing memories. I was losing me. And then the idea came. It wasn't a gentle thought. It was monstrous and clear. If my vault was empty, I would fill it with someone else's treasure. The next day I went to the park. I saw Sarah, a young mother from the next street over, on a bench watching her toddler. Her joy was so vivid, so loud. I sat down. "He's getting steady on his feet," I said. Her face lit up. "Oh, he took his first proper steps last week. It was all wobbly and triumphant." I closed my eyes as she spoke. I didn't listen to the words. I listened to the music of her memory. I stole the melody. That night, I opened a new notebook. I wrote "wobbly triumphant" at the top of the page. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe, like I'd been drowning and finally got a gulp of air. One success. That was all it took. It became a routine. The notebook began to fill. Take my barber, Marco. His hands always smelled of citrus. So I asked him, "Your father was from Italy, wasn't he?" And he told me about the lemon groves in Sicily, the fierce sun, the rough bark. I took that sun. I wrote it down. Sorrento lemon, heat on the neck. And it grafted. It became a memory I could feel. Then Professor Alden. I invited him for tea. I praised his wartime service. His voice trembled as he talked about the London rain, the smell of damp wool and cordite. I had a small recorder in my pocket. Later I played it back, again and again, until I could feel the chill of that rain on my own skin. The collection grew. I stopped being a man. I became a curator of ghosts. But ghosts have weight. Millie's locket was my masterpiece. I saw her drop it by the community garden roses. I pocketed it. A week later I knocked on her door. "Found this," I said, holding it out. Her old hands trembled. "Oh, Arthur, my sister." I asked about the photograph inside. She told me about the polio, the iron lung, the girl who loved violets. I drank the story like medicine. That night I woke up sobbing, a raw, ugly crying that shook my whole body. For a full minute I didn't know who I was crying for. Millie's sister, Evelyn, myself. The theft wasn't clean anymore. It left a stain. The ghosts in my head started murmuring, mixing up their stories. I needed something louder, something closer, to drown them out. That's when I called Clara. My fingers were cold on the phone. I invented a tax document, said I needed her address. Her voice was a static crackle, distant. "Is everything okay, Dad?" "Fine, fine," I said. Then I steered it. "And Leo, how's the boy?" She softened just a little. "He's good, made the soccer team." I pounced. "That's wonderful. What position?" I asked about the games, the practices. I was so hungry. "What kind of cleats does he wear? Kids are so particular." A pause. "Nike," she said. "His jersey is blue." I scribbled it down. Nike, blue. Building my grandson from spare parts. Her pause after that last question hung in the air. A landmine. I just stepped right over it. "Give him my love," I said, and hung up. The silence in my house after that call was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It had an echo. I should have known. Clara was her mother's daughter. She'd always been able to hear a lie. 2 days later, she was at my door, unannounced. My heart just dropped into my shoes. She stood there with Evelyn's eyes, scanning my tidy living room. She saw the disorder I couldn't hide. Dad. "Clara, what a surprise." I was babbling. The notebook was open on my desk. I'd been adding to it. She walked past me, straight to it. I couldn't move. I just watched her face. She picked it up. Her eyes moved down the page. Sarah's joy, Marco's father, Millie's sister, Leo's cleats. I saw the understanding dawn. It wasn't anger. It was worse. It was a devastating, horrible pity. Her face just collapsed. "Dad," she whispered, the word breaking, "what have you built?" She looked at me and I saw it. She didn't see the sharp old man. She saw a thief in a museum of stolen things. The air went out of the room. My whole constructed world, every stolen brick of it, just froze in that moment, waiting for her next word to send it all crashing down. She didn't say anything else. She just put the notebook down, very carefully, like it was a bomb. And then she started to cry. Not loud, just quiet tears rolling down her face. That's what broke me. Not the theft, not the lies, her pity. I sat down in my chair. I felt very small. "I'm sorry," I said. It sounded like nothing. She wiped her face. "All this time," she said, her voice thick, "I thought you were just sharp. I thought you were okay, and you were just collecting." She looked around the room at all my normal things. "You called me for Leo's cleats. You asked Millie about her dead sister. My God, Dad." That's when I realized what I'd done. I was wrong about everything. The mind isn't a vault. I built a fortress out of stolen bricks, and it was empty. The cost was right in front of me. I'd lost my daughter for real this time. Not to distance, but to this museum I'd made. I traded ever having a real moment with my grandson for a fact about his shoes. I remembered one specific thing then, a real memory, my own. Clara was 7. She'd skinned her knee on the driveway. She was wailing. Evelyn was at work. I picked her up, carried her inside. I was fumbling with the antiseptic, my hands shaking. She was sobbing, "I want Mommy." I said, "I know, sweetheart, I know, but I'm here." I got the bandage on. She stopped crying, just hiccuped. She looked at me and said, "You did okay, Daddy." Just that. You did okay. I told Clara that story then, sitting in the wreckage. My voice was shaky. I told her exactly what she'd said. "You did okay, Daddy." She stared at me. Her face changed. The pity was still there, but it got softer. "I remember that," she whispered. "I remember the blue bandage. You were terrible at it. The tape was all crooked." We both almost smiled. It was the first crack, the first real thing in that room full of ghosts. She didn't leave. She stayed. She made tea the way her mother used to. We sat in the silence, but it was a different quiet. It wasn't the silence of me disappearing. It was just quiet. I was still broken. I knew that. The sharp, kindly old man was gone. But for the first time in years, I was just there. A man, in a chair, drinking tea with his daughter. It was enough. It had to be. She didn't leave. She stayed. Not to accuse, but to sit in the wreckage with me. And that was the beginning of everything. We didn't talk about the past at first. We drank tea. She showed me a video on her phone. Leo missing a goal, then grinning and giving a thumbs up to the camera. I didn't write it down. I just laughed. A real, uncurated sound that felt strange in my throat. The next week she came back. We planted a rosebush in the yard for Evelyn. My hands were in the real soil, cold and damp, tending a real thing that would grow, or not, on its own terms. It was slow. It was clumsy. But it was the first true thing I'd done in years. Here's what I learned sitting in that wreckage. I was wrong about the mind. I thought it was a vault, a fortress. I thought sharpness was about how much you could store inside, how many facts you could recite to prove the walls were still standing. So when my own walls started to crumble, I panicked. I stole bricks from other people's houses to repair mine. I took Sarah's joy, Marco's son, Millie's grief. I built a museum of stolen moments and called it a mind. But a museum is a dead place, quiet. Everything in it is behind glass. You can look, but you can't touch. You can't live there. That's what I had become, a curator of a dead place. The cost was that I'd walled myself off from the only thing that could actually keep a mind alive. Connection. Real, messy, present tense connection. I traded the chance to really know my grandson for the fact of his shoe size. I almost lost my daughter because I was too busy performing the role of a father who remembered everything instead of just being a father right now who might forget. So here is my direct advice for anyone who feels that cold terror starting to whisper, who sees the first cracks in their own walls. Don't do what I did. Don't perform. Don't exhaust yourself trying to prove you're still sharp by reciting the shipping forecast. That's just fear talking. And fear is a terrible architect. It builds prisons, not homes. What you should do is this. Be where you are. If you're with someone, really be with them. Don't be thinking about how you'll remember the moment later. Just be in it. Listen to the story they're telling. Not so you can steal it, but because you care about the person telling it. If you forget the details tomorrow, it doesn't matter. The feeling of the connection, that stays in a different way. It nourishes the soil. And tend your own garden, however small it's gotten. Water it with the messy, beautiful present. A cup of tea with a friend. The feel of dirt under your nails. The sound of a laugh you didn't try to capture. You just enjoyed. That's the work. It's not about holding on. It's about being here. Is there hope? Realistic hope, not the saccharine kind. Yes, but it doesn't look like what I thought. It's not the hope of staying perfectly, permanently sharp. It's the hope of being soft and present and real for whatever time you have left. You still have time. Maybe not decades, maybe not even years, but you have now, and now is enough. The courage to be present in your own fading story, to feel the sun on your face, even knowing the storm will come. That is infinitely sharper than any illusion of a perfect memory. My mind isn't a vault anymore. Some days it feels like a sieve, but my heart feels more alive than it has in a decade, because it's finally touching real things, not ghosts. And that's my confession. I kept my mind sharp by stealing, and it almost cost me my soul. The real sharpness came when I put the notebook away and held my daughter's hand. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt that chill of forgetting or watched someone you love start to fade, then do something for me. Hit that subscribe button. It tells me these words matter, that this hard-earned wisdom isn't just echoing in an empty room. Turn on notifications too, so you don't miss what comes next. I'd be grateful if you'd give this video a like. It's a small thing, but it helps others who might need to hear this find their way to it. And down in the comments, I'd love to know, what's one small, real moment of connection you've had recently? A shared laugh, a quiet cup of tea, a memory you didn't try to capture, you just lived. Tell me about it. If this made you think of someone, a parent, a friend, a spouse who's struggling with the same fears, please share it with them. Sometimes the hardest conversations start with a story. And if you have a story of your own about love, loss, and finding your way back, My team has a submission form linked below. Your story might be the one that helps someone else feel less alone. For those who want to go deeper, I often recommend a book called The End of the Day by Bill Clegg. It's a beautiful, quiet novel about memory and forgiveness. It helped me. It might help you. But more than any of that, just do this. Look up from the screen. Be where you are. Tend your garden. It's the hardest, sharpest thing you'll ever do, and it's the only thing that lasts. The rose bush we planted for Evelyn has its first bud, a tight green fist of a thing holding its color inside. We don't know if it'll bloom, but we'll be here to see.